Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on the future of the hospitality industry. We've just got a few people waiting to join, but I think I pressed admit all, they'll be with us soon. I'm delighted to have a wonderful panel of key players here this afternoon. We have Jason Atherton, chef and owner of the Social Group. He began back in 2011. I'm sure it seems like only yesterday.
Yeah.
We have Sarah Gill, restaurateur, along with her husband Robin, who own the likes of the Dairy in Clapham and Darbys in Battersea. And then we have a host of MSs. I'm not sure I've ever seen three in the same room together. We have Stefan Neumann, director of wine at Dinner Restaurant, two-star restaurant in the Mandarin. We have Clément Robert, MS, from the Caprice Holdings, who has an extraordinary title, Group Head Sommelier and Wine Buyer. And obviously that group includes the likes of Annabelle, Scott, Sexy Fish. And then we have my erstwhile colleague, Devaney, also MS, who's a fellow director of Flint Wines, but also Cabotte Trade and Greenwich Kitchen. So Gearoid's wearing a lot of hats today. Yeah, the aim of today really is to take a look at how the lockdown and this awful virus has impacted on everybody, whether there's a way out, how soon it will be, and kind of what the future is going to look like after it's over. So we'll get cracking. If I could perhaps start with you, Jason. I'm going to ask you about three questions in one, so to make it nice and difficult. Firstly, what have you been up to since lockdown began? Have there been any parts of your business you've been able to pivot a little bit? And have you been able to keep in touch with your customers?
I think mostly it's been, I think once the shock to the system had sort of settled down after the first couple of weeks, and we'd started to sort of get a grip of, you know, what the future may or may not hold. And then we started talking about, you know, what it meant for the business, you know, as everybody understands that our industry proved how fickle it can be when it comes to stuff like this with, you know, rents and, you know, how little margins we have inside our industry and how difficult it is to keep our whole industry afloat. I mean, that was the real shock after 2 or 3 weeks of what really happened. And then, you know, once we got to grips with that, we were then looking to the future and what that meant. We then realised the only real way of staying in touch with people was trying to reach out to the vulnerable. So we did a lot for people feeding NHS nurses, and started doing our Instagram cook-alongs for regular guests. We were even cooking some of our regular guests and sending it around their houses free of charge. What else we've been doing? 2 hours in the gym, getting more than 8 hours sleep, which has not happened since the age of 14. And yeah, I mean, really, just seeing, you know, just sitting tight and listening to government advice, and then just really planning on how we're going to do it. We were back in restaurants last week, which was nice. Starting to do social distance on the table so we could go away and do the business plan. And that was quite an eye-opener when you do look at the difference between 2 meters, 1.5 meters and 1 meters. The significant, the massive difference is huge, you know, and unless the government get us down to 1 meter, which is what WHO guidelines are, I don't see central London coming back until that happens.
Yeah, I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, because a restaurant is no use to anybody, really. Ask the same question to you, really, Sarah. How have you managed to, I gather your place in Brentford has managed to change its modus operandi a little bit?
Yeah, that's one really positive thing actually to come out of this for us. You know, we have a small place in Brentford which has been very wobbly all along, but without people out walking more, and we're going to actually keep a hold of that business model now. in terms of bakery and a takeaway shop, and that's absolutely thriving, which is, you know, one positive thing for us to come out of it. In terms of our other businesses, like all of you, we were in a state of shock coming back, but we're very lucky that we can have Darbys up and running, and we've slowly been getting that more and more on its feet, doing deliveries and things like that. And Sorella we opened recently as well. And we've been very lucky in terms of our landlords have really been working with us, bar one. And that's an ongoing conversation and very tricky, but I think everybody's in the same position. But in terms of being fortunate with our other landlords, that's really been able for us to kind of crack on and make sure that we're in a good position when we do reopen. And that's so important for restaurants right now, is that they're in a good position when we do open.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you managed to keep in touch with a lot of your regulars across London?
Yeah, we have. It's been really nice. I mean, doing a lot of filming, like all of you guys, but I'm more behind the camera. We've been having, I think it's been, nobody had ever really, I'd never heard of Zoom before all of this happened. And now, like, it's been so innovative. I think we did a dinner party where the foods were sent and cocktails. We ended up knowing a couple of the people who were on it, which was really fun. Robin took over Time Out's Instagram. We did a cooking competition where we're sending recipes to people around Darbys, where they had to make Guinness soda bread, and then we're offering them a voucher for when we reopen. So, and also Robin has been cooking for the NHS and sending stuff in with a charity that Angela Harnett's very close to, so she got in touch with us. And our regulars are still, they're really supporting us with the shops being open, so they are popping in for a visit and things like that, which is nice, because people need to see people as well.
Yeah, especially in our industry. Clément, again, obviously Caprice Holdings a big group. How's the group managed to not keep working, but keep in touch with its customers, keep in touch with staff members, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, keeping in touch with staff members, which is obviously very important for the mall or for the team spirit. Well, various platform on tools really. WhatsApp group work very well. Even very simple things such as posting jokes on memes and things like that really help on keep the team relatively bonded. Obviously, sign up our sommelier to various virtual events on Zoom, master classes on things like that. But yeah, it's been a shock for everybody. And Caprice Holdings on Birley Club is 15 different establishments, and to see 15 different brilliant teams, you know, being affected. Some more, you know, some took it more positively than others. That was really tough, but as everybody else, we digested the shock, and we slowly but surely bouncing back. We are organizing some virtual events for some of our members of our private club. So at Annabelle's and Harry's Bar, so involving some of our team members, some of our staff. And it's great for the regular and for the members to also keep in touch with the key people, the people that run the business, the face of the business. And also, I mean, Richard Kering, the owner of Caprice Holdings on Birley Club, has been quite active with various charity events. He launched the Phoenix Project, which delivers still does 1,000 meals to NHS every day. And he has involved all the teams from Caprice on Birley. And it's great because it's also an opportunity, you know, of course, all suited with masks and gloves. We all go together, respecting social distancing, obviously, and packing for the NHS. So it keeps, you know, it really helps boosting them all to get together and act on something which is positive for other than ourselves and to look after the bigger picture.
Great. Thanks, Clément. And Stefan, I've seen you on Instagram at home in your kitchen doing various tastings and decanting and things like that. Is that how you've been spending a lot of your time the last couple of months?
Yeah, I think first of all, thanks for that little hint. Yes, I recently actually moved into a new place just before the lockdown, so I was very lucky to showcase my new kitchen in the best possible spotlight. But actually, on a serious note, for us, it was actually, in particular for me, it was a great opportunity to do actually things which I didn't have time before. And the meaning behind this is like, I always wanted to do staff trainings on a virtual base to reach a bigger audience. And, you know, Mandarin Oriental's got this social media platform, which we call My Mandarin Oriental. And we've got around 600 people working for us. So there's a real good engagement in between us, like doing things like funny videos. We have this learning and development platform where we do like a 1-hour presentation on, we call the platform go-to meetings. So there's a lot going on. And I think for us, the real focus has been not only as a group and as a restaurant, group meaning Mandarin Oriental, but restaurant as well, Dinner by Heston, is to keep our staff engaged. Because with us, it was like the one thing which we always were the most afraid about. We didn't want to let our staff down. We wanted to make sure that we keep that trust, we keep that connection with them. And I mean, I did my Instagram videos, and in the beginning I did more Instagram live until I realized that all the prime times are taken. So I thought like, okay, let's do more videos so people can watch them whenever they want. It gives you a little bit more freedom to plan your day as well. And, you know, I picked on various subjects, but I always wanted to do something with a video content which people can relate to. Then Hotel itself did a really, really good job in keeping the communication channels with us open, and currently they're still operating on a skeleton crew. So they still cook for a lot of meals, like a few hundred meals a day for NHS staff, which has been really important. Hospitality Action as a charity has been something which has been on our mind for many, many years now. And Heston supported it, I think Jason did as well something for them for a while. Ashley Palmer Watts. So for me, I did recently something with the Champagne Masterclass. So I think, you know, for us, I'm just trying to keep sort of inspired for what is going on, stay open-minded, let things come to me and get as much information as I can. And at the same time, you know, try to stay in touch with our guests. And this for us works more on a private way. So a lot of the guests, we have either the private emails, so we get in touch with them directly. And actually, it's quite amazing to see how good the response has been and how supportive so many of them are. And of course, there's a lot of talk about takeaways and if we can do something like this in the future. It's a big talk, but I think, you know, the most important thing for us is as well that we need to be happy with what we do and the quality of what we do. And so far, I mean, the response and the help from our regular guests has been fabulous. And as I said, really lots of personal messages more than anything else.
Yeah, great. That sounds relatively positive given the circumstances. And lastly, Gearoid, just perhaps wearing both of your hats as a restaurateur and an important supplier of wines to everyone around the table, really. What have you been up to?
Well, firstly, I think on the restaurant side, like everyone, there was that initial big shock, and it wasn't really clear what was going on. But yeah, took full advantage of the furlough scheme, obviously with Cabotte and trade being in central London. There wasn't really any other option but to close the businesses down and furlough the teams and sort of try and work it out from there. Then, yeah, like a lot of people are saying, sort of keeping in touch with the teams on WhatsApp groups, Zooms, which like Sarah I'd never heard of until.
We're probably all wishing we had shares in Zoom, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. So lots of Zoom meetings, and then also talking to people like, you know, the shareholders, the directors, and of the companies I'm involved in, what we're doing. And then, yeah, staying in touch with customers, regular customers. I mean, in terms of positivity, certainly at Cabotte, quite a few regulars are sort of saying that as soon as we open up, they're going to come and see us and support us. But to Jason's point about social distancing, which I guess we'll get onto a bit more, it's going to be tricky in the restaurant. Some of the fixed tables and the banquette seating, how we respect some of those sort of 2-meter rules will cause some headaches in terms of reaching a break-even number. So headaches there. And then in terms of, I think like Sarah's point, there's been various interactions with landlords and various people, and there's been different conversations, some positive, some less so. But that's a sort of work in progress. And then with suppliers, certainly at Cabotte. Once we've worked out the furlough scheme, just trying to sort out some of the supplier stuff as well. Certainly things from sort of January and February that's sort of hanging over, just trying to sort some of that out. So yeah, different things there. And then with the Flint hat, yeah, sort of staying in touch with people, doing Instagram stuff with you, Jason, which I know is, I see a few regulars of ours on the in the chat today, and talking to customers and conversations and sort of, yeah, saying that we're there and look forward to working with everyone on the other side of this mess, whatever it comes out. But I think I'm positive usually just by nature, and I'm thinking from the consumers I'm talking to, a lot of them will want to come back. So I'm keeping focused on that there will be some sort of a bounce back within the limitations that haven't yet been set out by the government. I think I was chatting briefly to Clément earlier, and we both said that until the government tells us exactly what we can do, it's quite hard to plan. But at the same time, we do need to plan, and we do need to stay engaged. And I think talking to customers, doing mail shots, doing the Instagram lives is all very important. And then obviously at Flint, we've done a few charity things and supported a few auctions and things like that as well, for I think Hospitality Action or Benevolence and things like that. So yeah, lots of considering I haven't really left a couple of square meters of my house for most of this time, I've been pretty busy.
I mean, you mentioned earlier, Jason, about the 1 metre rule. It's probably a good moment to move on to how we can come out of this situation. I'm not quite sure when that's going to happen, but what's your take? What's your take on the timeline? Really, do you see it as possible we can open restaurants in July, or are we looking much further ahead?
I mean, if you look at, if you take where our company trades, so if you look in Shanghai, for instance, we're reopening Shanghai. We've only got two restaurants, sorry, open at the moment, and Hire, our Japanese concept at the top of the Edition Hotel, has had the busiest month on record by 20%, just to complete. And there's no social distancing there. It's a 60 cover restaurant. They're doing 120 for lunch, 150, 160 for dinner every day. And the bar is really busy. And as far as I know at the moment, there's no second spikes per se coming out of China, apart from a few new cases in Wuhan popping up here and there. So it all, then Dubai opens up in a week. The government have imposed a non-alcohol ban, so that's 50% of your profits gone, or your 50% of your turnover gone, and you can only have 30% occupancy. So with the Dubai pickup, unless they change that, it's unworkable. I mean, we will open because we've got to open, but it'll be with 30% of the staff because we're doing 30% of the customers, and we've just got to wait and see how Dubai reacts to that. Then in this country, because that'll be the next wave to open up inside London, the unfortunate reality is that we won't be able to. I think we've got, including Berners Tower, and I think there's about 550 staff work for the company. But if we're imposed with 2 meters, which where it stands today, we will only need 40% of the workforce. So then what happens to them? The new furlough scheme doesn't really work. It's flawed in the fact that if you're paying 50%, if they're paying 50%, so I believe it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I the way I read it is they're paying 50%, you pay 25 plus PAYE and national insurance. But if you don't need those staff, why would you pay it, right? And we all know that, central London restaurants, if you look at somewhere like Pollen Street where the rent's 55,000 a month, and you've got 40% capacity, so that means the most you can turn is 160 grand. You've got no wiggle room at all. Do you know?
Have you found landlords being accommodating, for want of a better word? Or?
No, not at all. And the thing is, everyone's blaming landlords, right? But I'm not in the camp of blaming landlords, because at the end of the day, landlords are, we're landlords, and with the fact that we own some stuff in central London, which gets rented out and stuff. And the bottom line is, some landlords got rent holidays like we did for 4 months, you could pass that down the line. And some landlords are so leveraged up, like, you know, one of our properties in Soho, our landlord's so leveraged up that he needs the money, right? Or his ego goes bust, and he's getting no help from the government whatsoever, or the bank. So, you know, we're still having to pay full rent on that site. And, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. There's no help from the government for him or for us. So it's like, you know, you're stuck in a pillar and a hard post. Do you let the site go, or do you continue to pay it, hoping that at some point you're going to come out of lockdown and hopefully business will go back to whatever new normal is as soon as possible. And you know, it's a tricky one, do you know? And we're doing this on multiple fronts. You know, there's a New York. You know, we're deciding whether it's even worth reopening that site. And it's just, you know, it's really, really tricky when you've got multiple sites on different levels. You know, because from each jurisdiction to the next, the rules are different and they're changing regularly.
If you were consultant to number 10, what would you put in place to really support restaurants and the hospitality industry as a whole?
I'd sack them all and put Richard Corrigan in charge.
I'll second that. Yeah.
Oh dear.
A new petition on the way.
I just think at the moment, you know, it's, if you look at most of the other industries, they have, you know, and we did propose this. You know, we got a petition together and put it to number 10, but it fell on deaf ears, of taking people from different segments of our industry to create a board what could meet with number 10 on a weekly basis to discuss our industry and its needs, because it's multifaceted, right? So what Pollen Street Social will need is completely different to what Leon will need, and they're treating hospitality as one thing. It's completely different to what O'Neill's pub would need, to what an individual operator at the end of Maddox Street, the Mason's Arms, needs. It's all different, and there's so many different areas what need looking at, and our industry is so sensitive to this that if we don't get it right, potentially you're looking at huge redundancies and you know, potentially putting our industry back 20 years. You know.
And it's probably fair to say this virus came on the back of what was already a quite challenging 12 months. So as a supplier to restaurants, we were able to see that 2019 was not an easy year for a lot of restaurants.
Sorry to use too much time, but and also what everyone needs to bear in mind about this, you know, no one's even spoke about Brexit for 4 months. When we get out of this in the next 2 to 3 months, you know, we've got to be very careful that, you know, this government doesn't shadow what they're doing with Brexit, which is also potentially another curveball for our industry with food imports, wine imports, you know, this new immigrant scheme, what Priti Patel wants to bring in, which will decimate our industry. So, you know, post-COVID, we've also got to worry about Brexit.
Yeah, well, I think we'll come on to that, I think, a bit later, because the possibility of a major recession is certainly not. Yes, Sarah, in your restaurants, how are you going to organise it once you're allowed to open, so that people feel confident and happy to come into the restaurant and spend money and enjoy themselves?
Well, like what Jason was saying, we have a 13-seater restaurant, and then we have, you know, a much larger space. So the reality is we won't be able to open some of our restaurants until we can just open to the public, you know, and there isn't this distancing. You know, probably really only Darbys is the one that will do well. I think in terms of, like, it's so difficult to kind of plan at the moment in terms of, because we don't know what guidelines are going to be put in place. But, you know, we have been talking about, and also there's a whole issue about masks. Some people are opposed to people wearing masks. Some people feel more comfortable. Even I've noticed the different habits of people coming into the shop and really staying away from you, and some people almost wanting to come up and give you a hug, you know. So it really is, I think it's just going to have to be down to the individual. From our point of view, I was thinking maybe we take away menus and just do blackboards. So we're kind of handing out less things like that. I would ideally not like our team to be wearing masks if people feel more comfortable coming in, but then, you know, I don't really see how that's going to work if they're going to sit down and have a meal, you know. So it's really tough to say until we get all of these guidelines in place. But certainly for now, until we can open as and trade normally, yeah, we won't be able to open all of our restaurants.
And how would it work in the kitchens? Because as we know, they're quite stressful places when in the busy part of service. How are people going to keep their distance?
Yeah, and again, I think that kind of falls down to the restaurant. I mean, the dairy has a tiny kitchen, and so does Sorella and Counterculture. I mean, Darbys is fine, but I mean, Robin and I have been talking a lot about, you know, what kind of capacity could we open at and to kind of break even, and we'd just kind of rather not open until we're back to normal. But in Darbys, I mean, we've got 3 chefs working in there at the moment, and they're all just at different stations because we have the space. And then we were thinking maybe of approaching the council and maybe bringing some tables outside Darbys. So using that space there, so it's more outside in the summer. And years ago, we were told that the road outside the dairy was going to be pedestrianised. So we were thinking about approaching the council and saying, could they block that road so that businesses can open, at least have some outside space in order to start trading, maybe as a shop with 1 chef in the kitchen, things like that. But again, it's going to have to be people working with us. But I live in Clapham and well, I actually live in Brixton, but I'm very close to Clapham and Brixton. And if you saw the Common on Monday, there was certainly no social distancing going on. It was like a festival, and the same in Brockwell Park. So, you know, nobody's monitoring that, and yet we need to kind of get back to business, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as regards the public mood and public confidence, I think everyone's seen those pictures, and if in 2 or 3 weeks' time there isn't another spike, I think that will give a lot of confidence that people can venture out and be a little bit more ambitious.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that the vulnerable people and the people that are nervous kind of stay home and then just let everybody else get on with it and kind of get back to normal life.
Well, just one question. Is there generally, I mean, this would apply to everyone, but is there a capacity, a kind of a break-even capacity where, you can operate, not lose money, but at least keep things going? Is that 70%, 80%? Is it?
Again, it kind of depends on the restaurant and the size and the distancing that they're going to put in place. But yeah, as it stands, really the only restaurant that we could open would be Darbys, and that's maybe at like a 70 to 80%.
Yeah.
Because we want to do the best for our team and open and not then be closed in 6 months' time. So, you know, I'd rather have the support from the government to stay closed until, so that we are all safe. So maybe I should just say get on with it, but so that everybody is safe and confident going into restaurants, but then we can operate properly.
Yeah, absolutely. Clément, do you have a sense of whether in the short term, at least, it's going to be the Michelin stars for the more casual restaurants that are able to thrive, because they're quite different environments. Perhaps a non-Michelin star restaurant might be more about the atmosphere and the buzz, and pressures on space are often much greater, whereas in many Michelin restaurants, perhaps there's a little bit more space. Do you think one might work and one might not? Or?
Look, again, it all depends on your establishment. I will not even go into categorizing gastronomic experience versus casual experience. It all depends of the setup of your restaurant. It also depends on the location. If your restaurant is located, just take London as an example. If your restaurant is located in Covent Garden, well, the theatre won't be open. There are a lot of talk saying that the theatre won't be open until 2021. So regardless, you have a Michelin star restaurant there, or I would take one of the restaurants I look after, which is Balthazar, which is 1,500 covers a day. If you come breakfast in the heart of Covent Garden, well, if there's no tourists, at the moment there are no tourists for obvious reason. There are no show, for obvious reason, and that won't come back until, you know, a few months, then you also don't have the clientele. And then to answer your question precisely, it depends so much on the size of the restaurant. I'll take two examples. I'll take the example that I know. The example of Annabelle's. Annabelle's spawn over 4 different addresses on Berkeley Square. Huge space, huge building. Removing a few tables will not really affect that much our business, simply because we have tons of space already. If I take another example, as let's say Le Caprice of Daphne's, which are smaller operation, probably closer to a Michelin star vibe on environment, as you would probably say, then the issue is, of course, you have to remove tables to comply with social distancing, potentially build some screen to separate tables. And then you also need to look after the flow and the traffic of people between the staff coming out of the kitchen, going out of the kitchen, serving plates, and your guests going to the toilets, picking up a phone call, etc. So that's, for that reason alone, you need to remove further tables. And then also, because you need to polish the toilets, you need to polish the floor in a very nice manner and in a hospitable manner. You also need extra member of staff. So how does it work? You need, in a way, give more space to your guests, have your staff who are fully secured and safe, but at the same time, you need to have a decent amount of people looking after the flow on making sure your restaurant feels safe. So again, we back to, it depends what space you have in your restaurant. It's a very tricky situation. So there's not one answer, and I don't think there's one recipe which will fix all restaurants. I think each business owner and manager of restaurants need to look at their space, their business model, and act accordingly.
Thanks, Clément. Stefan, we just had a question actually come in from Mike Brown. Just in order to manage safety and risk in the way that Clément's just talked about, are we looking at a situation whereby restaurants won't allow walk-ins in the future? It will have to be bookings only. I know a lot of the restaurants represented here do a lot by bookings.
Very good question, actually, and there's a good answer for this, I think. So you look at Mandarin Oriental as a group. So we operate on several different in several different countries, several different continents, and there's sort of a global guideline of how to deal with this pandemic in a restaurant environment. And of course, it's going to get adjusted, but walk-ins, I don't think I see as much of a problem, because even before it was officially declared a pandemic, what we did as Mandarin Oriental, in London, we started checking temperatures of every staff member coming into the building, entering the staff canteen, and I spoke with someone recently. I don't think he wants to be disclosed with that, but there's even heat-sensitive cameras in some hotels installed in order to sort of spot if a person is having higher temperature. Now, there's a very important thing here to say, that not only higher temperature is not an indicator that you have COVID or not. So it's just one indicator maybe, but it doesn't say yes or no. But I don't think it will discourage us of taking walk-ins. Absolutely not. But I think what the most important thing for me, to answer maybe the bigger question here, hospitality after COVID is for me about one word. It's about trust. And trust goes many ways. It's the trust which I need to build in between my team members, from my staff to my guests, from a company point of view to my suppliers. So trust is one of the most important things for me afterwards, when we sort of come out of, when we reopen. And adjusting as you go along. Clément said this very, very good. There's no secret recipe which would work for each and every restaurant. I can say from my example, Dinner by Hesten, we are lucky enough to have quite a big space. So for us, we are doing, give or take, anything between 80 to 120 covers for lunch. So if you halve that, I think we'd be able to make a decent living with it. And at dinner, we look at anything between 100 to 150. So again, if I would just not seat every second table, I would have my sort of at least 2 meter distance in place. But all of these rules which are coming out now, they're getting adjusted on an almost daily basis. Jason said this before about Dubai, and I was in touch with a few people from Dubai, a few people from Hong Kong, and a few people from Chile, just to give me a little bit of a better understanding how they are dealing with it. And for example, the government in Dubai is much more hands-on in terms of their regulations, their rules, and they are much more implying things which you can and can't do. Where I think what is for us so important is that we have a plan ready, which, as I said, for me personally, is you need to adjust as you go along. You need to have a good, solid foundation ready. You need to have a good trust with your team members, with the guests, but even more so is you need to be flexible enough to adjust to the current situation, whatever is coming your way. And I don't think we're going to turn now away, for example, walk-ins, because that's as a general rule. I think we will definitely regulate how many people can be in a room, how many people can be in a building. And this is very much a day-to-day thing which will change. And I think, you know, what is maybe my last point here is, you know, every country is handling this in a different way. The best thing what I can say to this is you need to take a little bit of inspiration from everyone and sort of pick your ideas and think like, I think this would work for my business. I think this is something which I cannot apply. But at the same time, you know, you need to get inspired from other countries, how they are dealing with it. And Chile, Hong Kong, and Dubai, they deal in a completely different manner. But definitely there are a few things in there which would apply to your business and which will help you along the way. And I mean, you look at New York, I've been in touch with a few people from New York, which work in Michelin star places, and they say, well, we're not going to aim to be back until September. So there's a long gap in between that. So I think, you know, whatever the recipes for the individual restaurants to go out of this, it's about staying open-minded, not compromising on quality. That's, I think, a very important one. You need to still be proud of the product you produce and the product you serve, but you need to find a way of making this feasible for your specific outlet. And this is not only in terms of hygiene requirements, but it is so many levels where you need to adjust. I personally feel more for the smaller businesses because I think it's more difficult for them. Where the bigger businesses, like groups, larger hotel or restaurant groups, they will have a little bit more knowledge in between each other, and they will have a little bit an easier time to adjust to all of this. And at the same time, they have maybe hopefully a little bit more cash flow on hand. Because coming out of this, the one thing which we certainly will need is not only guests coming in, but us restaurants spending, again, money for our suppliers.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. Gearoid, just with your supplier hat on for a moment, is there anything you feel that suppliers can do to support restaurants? Not just, obviously, at the moment, whilst they're closed, but maybe helping with things like training, but when they get up and running again?
Well, I think so, and I think it's something that I've always been very keen on, and that's supporting with bringing winemaker events, winemaker dinners, making bookings, being a sort of being a good customer as well as a good supplier. I think it's all part of that circle, and for sure, I think once we're reopened, I'll be talking to restaurant partners and saying, if and when we can do things like private events or winemaker dinners or tastings to start supporting like that, or just as a normal customer coming back in through the door. So it's, I mean, myself personally, I'm looking forward to going to restaurants again, and I think that as a supplier, we'll definitely be looking to support our restaurant partners.
As regard with your Cabotte hat on now, how do you feel you'll have to change the offering there certainly during the day, not during the evening as well?
I'm kind of a bit sort of what other people have said. I'm looking at it as a relaunch almost, because we're closed for so long and we're opening in a new world. So it's almost like a relaunch, and we're looking at takeaway menus. Maybe for those who are having meetings in their offices where potentially they've all been tested, they feel happy, maybe we're delivering things into the offices that they can prepare we've got a lot of local offices to us where we've got good relationships, and they're in touch with us, and they're waiting for us to open. But if they don't feel that they're comfortable to go to the restaurants, then maybe we can bring the food to them. So it's looking at things like that, maybe wine takeaways as well. So maybe, yeah, Cabotte in the office for their neighbours around us. So yeah, that's kind of where I see that, I guess. And then maybe phasing the opening somehow, maybe looking at different opening hours, maybe not opening for evening straight away, maybe doing a bit of lunch service and bringing back some of the team when that furlough scheme is still running. But again, depends on open and what way the furlough scheme is working at that point, I guess.
Yeah, Sarah, a quick question for you. I was wondering, is there any way that technology can help restaurants going forward? We've all had to adapt to things like using Zoom, have meetings on Zoom. I wondered, could you have an app where you're able to order your meal before you arrive at the restaurant, so there's perhaps less need for interaction? Is there anything that can be helpful to you as a restaurateur?
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing we were thinking about, having iPads and taking the orders off them. So it's going directly into the kitchen to save going over to the same PDQ and maybe the blackboards. But yeah, that's, and in terms of maybe that it is just more bookings for us, less walk-ins in terms of like not having people sitting at the bar. Things like that would definitely be beneficial. But I do think at the initial stage, it will just be through online booking systems, so who is coming in prior, and you can plan for that more.
Might you have to have a slightly more restricted menu initially in those early months?
Yeah, well, if the team that would depend on the kitchen team for sure, and how many people we can serve, but definitely they'd have to probably simplify things a little bit, have a shorter menu. Maybe not simplify, but a shorter menu, a shorter offering. And at the moment, we're also looking at a picnic menu. So you can come and collect your picnic and take it out to the park and things like that. And we're doing more kind of wine tastings and having more of a bottle shop in Darbys on a Saturday, and same down in Sorella, and looking at those kind of picnic options where people can also take them away. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment with that.
Are there things that you've done that you feel that this whole thing has been good, in the sense that you wouldn't perhaps have thought of doing them, and actually they work really well, and you will continue to do them going forward?
Yeah, definitely. The hat shop in Darbys has been fantastic. So I think we will continue to do that and use that as a takeaway space. Because what we find is a lot of people come into Darbys during the day and they kind of sit down on their laptop, and we have a sandwich offering there all through, during the daytime. So that is something that we will definitely continue. And as I mentioned earlier, Rye by the Water, we will keep that business model running because it's running really well. So at the moment, so they are two really positive things to come out of it. In terms of the takeaway service and picnic offerings, I think we'll just have to wait and see how things progress. But at the moment, we're kind of bottling more cocktails and trying to adapt to the current situation as it's announced, really. Yeah.
Question, there's lots of questions coming through. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Jan Konetsky's got a question there, which I'll put to Jason, if I may. Have you got a sense of what your guests want from your restaurants in terms of what you can offer them, the hygiene, the sense of safety?
It's a tricky one, because what Stefan was saying about the word trust, that's absolutely. The restaurants will go the extra mile to make their guests feel that they can trust the restaurant. The ones what are going to do really well for the first couple of months, right? Because word will spread really fast. I think what people will want for sure is, to go places what they're familiar with, to eat the dishes what they miss, to be served by their sommelier what they miss, to be served by their favourite waiter, to be cooked for by their favourite chef. All of that stuff's going to play into our hands in that sense. But if they feel for a single second that we're not taking this seriously, and we don't, and we're not putting their safety first, I think also can backfire on you very quickly. So, no, of course, who wants to be served by a sommelier mumbling through a mask? Nobody, right? Ultimately, that might be a fact, right? It just might be where it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. Do you want a waiter standing 2 meters away from you while they pour the sauce on the dish and then they dump it and run? Like almost like a smash and grab scenario. But but the thing is, guys, until we get clear direction, it's all just speculation. And I think once we get that, I think that's why, I know no one wants to hear it, but the longer we wait, the better that's going to become for all of us. And I'm hoping by the 1st of August, when that's what we're planning to come back on the 1st of August, that, there'll be a lot more clarity, and we can live with, our business can live with the 1 meter space. And, if we have to wear masks, we wear masks. We'll certainly be putting sanitizing stations around the restaurants, manning the toilets to make sure there's only so many people in there at any one time. We're looking at doing Q codes for the wine list, so people can just browse them on their phones. Also asking each booking through Open Table that if would they like the wine list and menu sent to them in advance, so they can choose in advance pre their booking, so they don't have to touch the menus. I don't really want to do disposable menus where it's one touch in the bin, because I just feel that if you want to touch a menu and you're happy with that, then that's your choice, and that's part of the luxury of going to somewhere like Pollen Street or Berners or City Social or whatever. And if you want to, I'm all in. The minute I can go back, I'm happy to touch a wine list, and I'm the guy who sits there for an hour and a half driving the sommeliers up the wall while I read through it, and my wife is just texting people on the other side of the table. So I'm happy to do that because that's my choice. But I think we've got to give that choice to the customer.
And I think they'll be so keen to hopefully get back to restaurants that they'll be happy to adapt to the things that you put in place.
Yeah.
Okay. One question perhaps to Clément. This might be coming from Daniel Lowe, who's asking if there's potentially reduced capacity in restaurants and we do need to keep the spend up. On the wine side, how can we do that? How can we ensure that the money is being spent in keeping restaurants in good shape?
Yeah, well, look, that's a very tricky one. I think sommeliers and wine service will have, as Jason just mentioned, will have in a way have to be reinvented. And I think the idea of having one list which are digital, where people can spend time, potentially pre-choose, spend some time on the phone with the sommelier if it's for a specific bottle before booking. All those solutions are definitely viable. The reality is, if the idea of having a sommelier breathing 1 meter or 70 centimeters from your face is no longer viable. So of course we need to find different solutions. But one thing I like to mention, and I think is important, is that all our brilliant staff, which have as a that talent of delivering an exceptional experience and exceptional service in a normal situation, not in a lockdown situation. I think it's very important us as employers, as managers, to support and make sure that they remain in a business and that we find a place for them in a business. Even if it's not selling wine at a table because that's their main talent, and ask them for flexibility and do other things. Because when we're going to come back to the other side, and if restaurants fail to keep their talents, and people who have a talent for hospitality, then we're all going to be worse off. The reality is during this lockdown, and when restaurants will reopen, yes, upsell on delivering a normal wine service is just going to be very, very hard. So we'll have to bite the bullet in a way.
And do you think it's a time where margins need to be compromised or need to be maximized?
Again, that will depend on the restaurants. Very, very tricky. If I look at our private member clubs, absolutely not. We can't expect our members to come back to our clubs, and because of the situation, pay more money, not viable. In public restaurants, potentially. I think we have all realized during lockdown, when we order takeaway, how expensive takeaway are, and often how poor they are, with exception of some brilliant businesses who've done an amazing job at delivering brilliant food. I think it's fair to say that a lot of takeaway are relatively disappointing, underwhelming, and still cost a lot of money. So I think this lockdown, and also people cooking, when they do shopping for nice ingredients, trying to cook at home, a lot of guests and people will have realized how expensive it is to actually cook good ingredients, good food at home. And some of the restaurants, they almost look cheap now. You know, when you have a brilliant plate of food with a world-class chef cooking this plate of food, and when you try to reproduce at home, you see the cost of trying to reproduce something which you don't even achieve because you're not a chef, you're not a Michelin star chef. I think a lot of people will have sympathy for how much restaurants would like to charge when things will be over. But raising prices flat is not an option either. I think each restaurateur will have to look at their customer base, who are their regulars, and then make a decision accordingly. But there is an argument for potentially raising prices in order to survive. Yes, absolutely. And I think a lot of guests will have sympathy to it.
A question for Stefan, actually, totally my question. Stefan, how are you going to get to taste new wines to put on your list? Bearing in mind the conventional trade tasting is probably not going to exist for some time.
Well, actually, this is a pretty easy answer here because I haven't tried this wine in a long time, and thanks to one of my fellow master sommeliers, he sent me in a bottle to taste, which was very kind. I think, you know, with a lot of suppliers now adjusting to the business and having lost a lot of the hospitality sector as a client, there's pretty amazing offers out there. I don't know about you, but I like to spend, I set myself a budget aside every month, what I want to spend on a bottle, on a case of wine. And that's what I'm doing right now. And in order to find good wine, you don't need to spend an awful amount of money. And especially in times like these, especially when you have a group of sommeliers which are interested, it's actually quite easily done of combining orders. So to give you a concrete example, what I did recently with one of the suppliers, the minimum order was 12 bottles. I ordered on their behalf. And once the lockdown was a little bit more loose, I delivered these bottles via my bike and then good old fashioned backpack. There was two advantages with this. I got trade prices. I could pass on the prices to my staff, which actually made them feel happy. And I got some exercise in the end. So trying new wine is actually just up to you. You know, you need to think outside of the box what you can do. And I live very close to one of my sommeliers, 10 minutes away, 15 minutes walk. There's no harm done with Cora wine these days that you share a bottle or you share a few glasses. So there's so many ways how you can think of tasting new wine. And I think, you know, it comes a bit back to my point before, you know, it's so much about trust in the end of the day. And it's about being flexible enough to adjust to this time. There was one question actually in the comments, is multitasking stuff going to be the new norm? And I think, you know, if you look at the wine industry and if you look at so many people which are right now joining us and people which are presenting this here today, I think, you know, a good sommelier knows as much about the Bremeux villages of New St. George as he knows about the supplier of the pigeon, the supplier of the duck, and the supplier of the halibut. So definitely there will be stuff which will need to be required to be more multitasking. But, you know, I think what I love about hospitality is that there's always a challenge. There's always something something to look forward to. And there's no way you know everything, you know, no matter who you are, no matter which exam you've done, there's always something which you can learn. And there's always a moment where you get from someone else inspired. And Clément had actually a very good point about people spending a good amount of money on high quality ingredients. For us, a good example was always that we never, before lockdown even, our markup for good quality fish was always quite low because we already felt like we're charging quite a lot for it. but at the same time, the markup for meat was at a normal stage. And coming out of this lockdown, I don't think we will adjust prices and go down that extreme route of raising or lowering, but we will adjust as we go along. But I think in a positive thinking way, I think a lot of people will have more understanding how much it actually takes to run a restaurant. And that's not only in regarding to doing training for your staff when you reopen, in regards to hygiene training, all the wine trainings which you do now virtual, all the money which you need to spend for people to come to the restaurant, not only the ingredients which you buy, as well as just the normal running costs for a rent. I mean, I think a lot of people will have a little bit more understanding after this lockdown than they had before. So they were like, oh, why did you charge me £35 for my fish? Now they realized, oh, well, actually, when I order my fish online, I need to pay for the fish, I need to pay for the delivery, and I actually need to cook it as well. So I need to invest a substantial amount of time. So if there is something positive about this lockdown and about this situation is, I think we're all in the same boat and we all learn something from it. And that hopefully, in my personal opinion, will help us to be, relaunched in a better and stronger way.
Thanks, Stefan. I've got a quick question for Sarah. Is that because many of your places are what we, I guess, would call neighbourhood restaurants, do you think that puts you in a safer position than a more international restaurant that's more reliant on tourism? Because it's quite possible tourism may not recover that quickly.
Well, we noticed initially, even before we kind of went into lockdown, that we got a last 2 weeks of being busy, whereas I suppose was people still wanted to go out, they thought something might be coming and they wanted to support their local business. But I think, you know, listening to everybody here today, everybody has those kind of regulars who are going to get out and really support the people that they believe in. And I think that we're at a slight disadvantage because they're much smaller places, but I do think that when we are reopened, that it is a slight advantage being within a neighborhood where you can walk to it. Even most of our team either cycle in and out of work or walk and things like that. So I do think being in a neighborhood restaurant is we've even seen all of our customers coming to all the shops and walking from Clapham to Vauxhall to support us. And it sounds like everybody's having support from theirs as well. So hopefully people just, I think, want to get back out and back out into restaurants really.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're coming towards the end of the hour now, so we'll probably time to wrap up as people have other things to do. But I just want to ask each of you just one last question. Jason, two questions to you actually. Firstly, just because I haven't really touched on it yet, staff. Obviously, a lot of staff had to go back home, back to France, before the lockdown happened, and then we had issues with Brexit as well. Is it going to be difficult to get the staff back that you had before?
I think it's going to go one or two ways, to be honest. I think it might play in the fact that because a lot of restaurants won't make it through this, is that there'll be a lot more staff looking for work, or potentially because of the timing, because we're going back in July, August. A lot of our staff are Italian, Greek, French. They'll just stay at home and get jobs as and when their resorts open back up. Where we all know that you can get a great job on the Italian Riviera, getting paid 4 times what you get paid in Central London, and that will probably see them through till late September, early October, and then we might see an influx then. But and that will keep a close eye on what's happening with Brexit and how that comes with a new tier system, or whether they're the last minute they'll make an exemption where they'll keep our industry out of it, because they've got to make a real close call about that.
Could you end on one positive note, Jason?
On one positive note?
Yeah.
Kylie Minogue just sent me a bottle of wine.
That's pretty positive.
It just arrived. It's just arrived at halfway through the meeting. Is that positive?
Definitely positive.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
No, but on a serious note, I honestly believe the one good thing what came out of all this, right? Listen, our industry might not be cash rich. Our industry might not have, you know, the legacy of big banks where they can, you know, afford to lash out loads of money and do this and do that and support this and support that. But one thing our industry has is durability, and it has so much love inside of it. And to watch the industry just perform, you know, I've been cooking for 34 years now, you know, and you know, I've been through 2 recessions, a global meltdown in 2008, and now this. And every time, you know, our industry steps up to the plate with, you know, feeding the nurses, you know, do whatever it's asked of it, it does. And I think we should be very proud of our industry and the fact that we are, you know, we were absolutely, even though we were down on our luck, we didn't lick our wounds for too long. We got back at it. And I really genuinely believe that people who are attached to good restaurateurs, good hotels, wine merchants, whatever, guide us through this. We'll come through the other side stronger and better, I'm sure of it.
Thanks, Jason. There's clearly a lot of Kylie fans out there. She delivered it personally, by the looks of things.
She's still singing that song.
Do you have something positive that you feel has emerged from this nightmare?
Sorry, who was that to?
That was to Clément.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I wasn't listening at all, as you could see. Anything positive coming out? Well, look, we need to show resilience. We need to look at new ways to be closer to our guests while being further to them physically. Yeah, I mean, look, it's at the moment it's survival, so of course it's very difficult to be positive. We need to have clarity from the government, as Jason mentioned. A lot of things are speculative at the moment. We only can plan for the best. Yeah, I mean, look at the weather. The weather is fantastic. That's definitely positive. I've got a brilliant bottle of wine from Flint. Thank you very much. Yeah, and those are the positive. We need to fight and try to keep the highly motivated and brilliant people which are in our business on come stronger on the other side.
Thanks, Clément. Sarah, any advance on Sunshine and Kylie Minogue?
Yeah, well, I'm a huge Kylie fan, so I'm very jealous. When I was younger, I wanted to look like Kylie, and I still do today. But from my side of things, from a business point of view, I would say our team, the resilience and passion that they've shown, and when I've been having down days, they've really picked me up. Like their thoughts and ideas and getting us all together has really overwhelmed me. When we landed and we had to deliver some very harsh news, they really did blow me away, and I'm so thankful for them. And from a family perspective, Robin is home every evening. We're having family dinners together. We have become obsessed with this card game, which I win many a night, and we stay up way too late drinking wine. So trying to take that side of it, we have a 5-year-old that we're sitting down and spending some more family time together. So that's been a huge positive for us.
Great. And Stefan, something briefly from you?
Well, I said my positive piece already before, but I'm a general positive thinking person because I heard this recently. I'm not sure if this was Sir Winston Churchill who said that, you know, but an optimist is always seeing something positive in maybe a negative environment. And I'm a bit like this. So I focus more on the good things than anything else. So for me, this offers me an opportunity to do things I've never done before. It offers me the opportunity to do wine tastings for my team, which on a virtual base, which I thought I will never do. But at the same time, you know, I get the energy from my staff members, as Sarah mentioned before as well. I get inspiration from other people, like he's still on. Jan Konecki is a good example. What he's doing on Instagram is fabulous. So there's so many good things out there. I personally choose more to not being naive enough to ignore the bad things. But in the end of the day, hospitality is a people's business, it's a social business. And now, social distancing or not, but one thing which always holds us together is a personal contact. If this is for a certain period of time, 1 meter, so be it. But will it stop me of trying to deliver the best service I possibly can? And will it stop our chefs of cooking as passionate as they cooked before after this? I don't think so. They're going to be even more motivated after all of this than even before, maybe. So for me, actually, Garrett said this before, see it more as a relaunch than anything else. And there will be so many hurdles coming in our way. And of course, we need more guidelines from the government. There's no doubt about this. But actually, it gives you really, there's a French expression here, the carte blanche. It gives you the opportunity to rewrite, you know, whatever you wanted to do before, actually, you've got now actually a chance to do it. And if it doesn't work, you know, in the end of the day, what will people remember about 2020? Maybe a few bad takeaway meals, maybe a few great Instagram live sessions, but they will remember the people they dealt with and the positive memories they had with people. And it's our job in hospitality to create these memories. If we as an individual can contribute to that, then hey, that's what we're here for. So my positive way is like build trust and go for it. You know, the rest will unfold itself in front of you.
Yeah. Well, I think if we leave the last word to Garrett, give us positive spin, Garrett.
Well, I think it's been echoed and mentioned already. I think it's about people, Jason. The hospitality industry is about people, our customers, our staff. You know, it's a people business, and I think people are strong, and people don't even realize how strong they are until they come up against sort of adversity like this. And yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone, so many friends and family here on this Zoom group today, and I'm just looking forward to seeing everyone on the other side of this, and we'll get through. So I think it's all about the people.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you to all those that tuned in, and yeah, absolutely, we hope to see you all soon in one restaurant or another. Thank you very much.